What's going on, guys? Teddy Baldassarre from teddybaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where we do more in-depth reviews of watches available for purchase on our website as an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry. Today, we're going to be looking at the Bulova Frank Sinatra Fly Me to the Moon. So in this video, deeper dive review, things to consider both in the positive and negative end at the end of the video, and then also all relevant links will be in the description down below if you are interested in purchasing. So guys, let's take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 39 millimeters, thickness of 12 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, lug to lug of 45 millimeters, water resistance of 30 meters, movement is a Miyota 8215, crystal is sapphire, crown is push and pull, and price $750, but for this week and for the holiday season, have it at $525 for this Bulova Fly Me to the Moon Frank Sinatra edition. And at the time of releasing this video, we do have a nice promo for Bulova watches on our site getting 30% off. So definitely take advantage of that. That is just for this week and this week only. So Bulova is a brand that has an interesting backstory, being founded in the United States by a former Tiffany & Company employee, Joseph Bulova. Noticing a trend towards wrist-worn watches opposed to pocket watches, Joseph Bulova released a full line of men's watches in 1919. And as a byproduct of this, as well as their very prominent advertising on both TV and radio during the mid-20th century, Bulova was one of the more prominent watchmakers during this period. Now, speaking of being prominent in pop culture and as well as being very active on television, that really allows us to segue into the piece that we're going to be looking at today, which is this Fly Me to the Moon version honoring Frank Sinatra. And you might be asking, Frank Sinatra, yes, we know the star, we know the icon that he is, but why is he on this watch? Why is there all this emblematic symbolism attached to his brand and who he is? But just for some context, Bulova was actually a brand that Sinatra was very fond of, as well as being an advertiser for the Frank Sinatra show throughout the 1950s. And given both of their connections to the epicenter in which both of them arose in terms of popularity, New York City, and really personifying what it meant to be a New Yorker during that time, it really was a match made in heaven. And with this release of these Fly Me to the Moon models, which there are a few different variants to choose from in terms of color options, as well as a couple other lines paying tribute to Frank Sinatra with some different names of songs actually being the names of the collections, such as The Best Is Yet to Come, Young at Heart, and My Way. These pieces offer a great tribute to that mid-20th century style that Sinatra so much embodied while putting it together in a modern package. Now first, let's look at this watch and its wearability. In terms of it on the wrist, we're looking at a pretty classical case shape at 39 millimeters, 12 millimeters in thickness, 20 millimeter lug to lug, and a nice 45 millimeter lug to lug distance, which should make this pretty wearable for a variety of wrists out there. It wears pretty true to that 39 millimeter case size, given its case shape and overall structure. One important note as well, just given the era in which these watches are really trying to represent acrylic crystals in those very domed vintage hue type of looks that were being thrown off by those crystals, is very much replicated here with this sapphire crystal. It is going to add a little bit of thickness, but in terms of the effect that it is giving off, very similar to those classic styles of vintage timepieces of the era in which this is really pulling from. But when strapping this one on, it does have more of a cushion case style, so something else to consider here. The crown, despite its size, is pressed quite nicely to the case, so it isn't going to protrude out that much. The case is going to come in high polish across all of the showing surfaces, on the lugs, on the bezel, as well as on the side of the case. Between the lugs on this one, we do have a 20 millimeter strap. It's coming with a lizard grain. It's definitely a calf skin with a pressed lizard grain type of aesthetic. It is of decent quality, better than a lot of, I would say, competitors in terms of this price range, but no world beater by any means. I probably would upgrade this if I had the opportunity, just because this version that we're looking at here with the black dial and the golden accents, I think would look good in a variety of different straps paired with this one. It does come with a deployment clasp, which is a nice actually added benefit of this piece if you do want to allow yourself to get more longevity out of your straps and not really allow them to wear as easily. It does taper down slightly, and the deployant is pretty solid for what you're getting. I think getting a deployant with any watch is always just an add-in. It's a great thing to have, and it's also signed on the buckle, coming in a matching high polish as well. Now, looking within the dome sapphire crystal, we have a relatively simple dial format. Along the outside, there's no minute track, which I actually kind of prefer given the overall texture of this dial. It has a sunray rib type finish that with this black dial is very subtle, but when you do move this watch underneath the light, the presence of that ribbed style finish does make itself known. Along the outside, we do have applied markers. They're coming in gold accents to match the alpha style hands at the center. At each of the odd markers, we're going to see triangular applied markers, and at the even hours, we're going to see large numerals All of the markers are slightly reflective, just like the dial surface itself. At the 12 o'clock, we have the printing of Bulova. At the 6 o'clock, the signature of Sinatra in clean cursive right above automatic. And at the 3 o'clock, a simple outline date window with a gold steel frame that matches the rest of the accented gold markers across the dial surface. The finishing on this dial is quite good. I think that is certainly the star of the show in terms of this piece and what it's getting across. Does certainly resemble or remind me of that type of finish that you get with the Seiko Cocktail Times, but it's done with its own style and flair, just like Sinatra himself. Now, for each one of these different Sinatra pieces, this Fly Me to the Moon version, as well as the other versions that I mentioned earlier, they all feature different calibers within them. You have the high-level Swiss calibers that are going to be in the pricier versions. You also have some quartz options available on the more affordable end, and this one kind of falls in the middle, and it's featuring a Miyota caliber within the 8215. So Bulova is a member of the Citizen Watch Group. So very similar to what you have with many of the Swatch Group brands featuring ETA calibers. This is really what's happening here with Miyota, with that being the movement provider for the Citizen Watch Group. Now, taking a closer look at the open case back, we have the Sinatra logo at the center, with his iconic fedora also being present there, as well as on the sign crown as well. But not being completely obstructed, we also have view of the Miyota 8215 automatic caliber within. So if you're not familiar with the 8215, it's basically one of the flagship basic automatic movements from Miyota. This one is the undecorated version, which you can clearly see the rotor as well as the movement itself is very utilitarian in terms of its finish. It's a 3 Hz movement, 21,600 vibrations per hour. This particular version does not feature hacking, which is going to perhaps be a downside for some people that are looking in the direction of this. It does feature hand winding. It has a 40-hour power reserve, and in this particular version, I found that some of these Miyota movements also do kind of perform quite well. This one is running at plus 5 seconds a day, so there is some nice things to be achieved here in terms of these movements, but it is a basic one, and I could see this being probably one of the points in terms of criticism of this piece, but nevertheless still a reliable automatic movement within this watch here. Now to unpack and just take a closer look at this piece overall, share some final thoughts, things to consider. Now, like any watch that is paying tribute to something, like recently I did a review of the Omega Speedmaster Snoopy edition. Whenever there is paying tribute to either prominent fictional or non-fictional character or individual, there's going to be some people that are just not going to be about it. In order to even look in the direction of this piece, you need to be a Sinatra fan. And if you're not going to be looking at this watch for even a second. So that's the first thing to consider. In addition, the movement here is definitely, I think, a point of criticism. This is a movement that is commonly seen in some of the more entry-level watches around $200-300. But in the world where there's a lot of just kind of forced tributes, I think this Bulova Sinatra edition is certainly much more tasteful and just makes a ton of sense when looking at the backstory between both Sinatra and Bulova, them arising in New York City. The dial finish on this piece is quite nice. I think it's actually a very attractive looking watch. You also have the variety of different options within the Sinatra line, so in case that you did want to maybe get a little bit more, you can also look at the Best Is Yet to Come, which also will feature Salida movements inside, so that will be a nice upgrade, as well as some other additional automatics that you can look at. But ultimately, this watch is for that Sinatra lover in your life that also is a fan of watches, and if that is you or somebody that you know, then this one should be on your radar. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also, hit the link in the description if you are interested in learning more about this piece and also purchasing it. We're an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, full factory warranty, and one of the most secure places you can buy a watch online. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.